What's up, Habs fans? S2H back in action once again, and the topic I'm going to talk about today is probably going to be quite controversial amongst some fans, so I'd like to start off by saying I do not think Marc Bergevins is a terrible GM, and I will be doing a video on the top 3 best moves he has made so far in his career, and he's made some really good moves. I've liked what he's done with the prospect pool, but what I'd like to talk about today, in case you can't tell by what you're seeing on your screen right now, is his 3 worst mistakes as a GM for the Montreal Canadiens. And the first thing I have to talk about, it's the thing that stands out the most by far to every fan, is the Alzner signing. Coming off a disappointing first-round playoff exit and letting unrestricted free agent Andrei Markov walk away in free agency, Marc Bergevins found himself desperate to fix the left side of the Montreal Canadiens defense. And this in turn led to what is arguably Marc Bergevins' worst signing, where he inked 28-year-old Karl Alzner to a 5-year, $4.6 million per year contract. Now, in Bergevins' defense, at the time, it didn't look so bad. Karl Alzner was a top-rated D-man in free agency that year, who was a hard-hitting, well-established, big-body NHL defenseman. But unfortunately for Alzner, Bergevins, and all of us fans who had high hopes on Alzner, it was a disaster from the start. After a full 82-game season in 2017-2018, where Alzner was terrible points-wise and a consistent target for ridicule and for the media, and he was just slow on the ice. He just didn't look good. He found himself buried in the AHL, playing only a combined 13 NHL games after that in the 2017-2018 season. He only played 13 NHL games, which finally led to the Montreal Canadiens deciding to buy him out this offseason. All in all, Alzner is definitely a player who Bergevins, all of us Habs fans, want to forget about sooner than later. It's needless to say that his 13 points in 91 games played and terrible advanced analytics stats speak for themselves, and that Alzner was one of Marc Bergevins' worst mistakes as a GM. Up next, we have Marc Bergevins drafting Alex Galchenyuk. In the controversial 2012 draft, where a lot of teams made big mistakes, like the Edmonton Oilers picking Neil Yakupov first overall, for example, the Montreal Canadiens decided to go with the highly touted young Russian center, Alex Galchenyuk. And in 2014-2015, it looked like it may have paid off for the Habs. Galchenyuk scored 30 goals. He had 56 points in 82 games played. He was a flashy, young, fun player to watch. But after some injury issues and issues where he would get bounced up and down the lineup, Galchenyuk found himself struggling to establish himself as a center in Montreal, which inevitably he was not. 2 lackluster seasons where he didn't produce 20 goals. He only had 44 points and 51 points in those 2 lackluster seasons. He found himself being traded for Max Domi to the Arizona Coyotes. But what really makes this Marc Bergevin's biggest mistake, in my opinion, isn't the fact that he drafted Galchenyuk, because it was a pretty weak draft, but he missed out on Morgan freaking Rielly. 2 picks later, at the 5th overall pick, the Toronto Maple Leafs took Morgan Rielly, and in my opinion, that has to be one of Marc Bergevin's biggest mistakes, missing out on Morgan Rielly and drafting Alex Galchenyuk. And last but not least, some fans may agree with this, some fans may not. It depends on what side you're on, the way he handled the Markov situation. Markov spent his entire NHL career in Montreal, over 16 very solid and respectable NHL seasons. Markov has ingrained himself in the hearts and minds of many Montreal Canadiens fans. He was on his way to cementing his legacy in Montreal by being reaching the 1,000 game mark. He was only 10 games away. So when free agency came, all of us fans thought there was no way Montreal is going to let Andrei Markov walk. But because he wanted a 2-year deal to stay in Montreal, Bergevins would not re-sign him and only offered a 1-year bonus-heavy contract to Markov. This unsurprisingly disrespected Andrei Markov, who for 990 games had bled his heart out, sweated his heart out for the Montreal Canadiens. But because he wanted 1 extra year of term, the Montreal Canadiens would not re-sign him, and I will never understand why they didn't do that. And I see that as one of Marc Bergevin's biggest mistakes. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and have a great day, folks, wherever you do. This is Open Assist with Scotty.